This build that I brought for you today is something similar to many things that we have done here in the channel. We have done basically builds for every single thing. So at this point we are just going to be making changes on the previous builds that we have made. And this one particularly, it is going to be very strong, it is going to be god tier, it is going to be very overpowered. And you're going to be very overpowered early on in the game. The thing is that with this guy we're going to be using arrows. So that's just one thing that we're going to have right here. We're going to be using a variance between a Warlock and between a Rogue. The thing is that this guy can be doing melee, this guy can be doing archery, this guy can be casting spells, this guy can be focusing on something different rather than having to focus on the darkness. So there's going to be a little bit more versatility with this build. So yeah, there's that. We're just going to make quite a little bit of changes around here. And now the starting class, that is going to be up to your personal preference. There is no particular reason as to why are we starting with Rogue or Warlock. Although I do advise for you to take something that is going to, as a race at least, take something that is going to give you a proficiency with your desired thing of choice. The Rogue is going to give us already the proficiency with simple weapons, and most of the times we are going to be using like the simple weapons like short swords or daggers, at least for melee damage. So there is indeed that. And the rest of the proficiencies, regardless of you being able to use a short bow, a long bow, dual crossbow, although I do not advise dual crossbow that much with this guy, or a crossbow, is going to be up to your personal preference. Which race are you going to begin with? For this guy, I advise any kind of elf that is going to give you a proficiency with longbow. That being said, because we're not going to be multi-classing into a fighter, that is not something that we are going to be doing. In case you want to suggest that, we do have different builds where we multi-class. We have the Gloomstalker, we have many things. That is not the focus in here. In here, we're doing different little things, and we actually want for those things to work like that. So my advice is just for an elf, just because I like the longbows, but that is not a main thing. Now in here you notice that we're not going to have high constitution, even though that we are going to have quite a lot of concentration in different spells. The reason for that being is that the focus and goal in here is for the enemy to never see us. We're going to be 100% of time on the shadows, meaning that gives us the choice of not having to rely on constitution that much, because the enemy is never going to be hitting us. We're not going to be needing our high armor class because the enemy is not going to be seeing us. That is going to be the defense of this build. The enemy, the incapability of the enemy on they being able to see us or not being able to see us, and the amount of tools that we're going to have with our arrows and what have you. So the most important things, honestly, is going to be dexterity and charisma. And, well, dexterity, we want that for the high initiative, mostly. It's going to give us also a little bit of armor class, and it's also going to increase a little bit the damage that you are going to be doing with your ranged weapon. Although our ranged weapon, we're mainly going to be using it for utility. Our main damage is going to be coming from melee, and we're going to be using the Warlock for that, the high charisma for that. So there's that. We have 3 ability points in here that you can decide to spend whichever you would like to have them. If you have a min-maxing to strength right here, if you want to have all of the saving throws right here as they are, it's just going to leave you with 1 point right there. So something nice to do is just pick one that you're going to want to have like at maximum, like the proficiency saving throws with wisdom or intelligence if you think that is important. But then again, I want to stress out that none of those stats are really going to be important because the enemy is never going to be seeing us, so we don't have to be bypassing saving throws for intelligence, wisdom, strength, what have you, because the enemy is not going to see us. So this is up to your personal preference. The only thing that you are going to be really needing is going to be charisma and dexterity. I'm just going to place the rest of the remaining points in here into constitution just because, but just have in mind that this is not important. At this point you can decide if you're going to multi-class into a Warlock or you're going to continue as a Rogue. Me personally, I like to continue as a Rogue because I like to be able to unlock my hidings as fast as possible, as soon as possible. And then we're going to be using arrows. That is going to be one thing about this build, that we're going to be using arrows. So yeah, nothing really interesting is going to happen at level 2. At level 3 we're going to have the chance to choose our specialization, and this is where you're going to have a concession decision to make. It's going to be either Thief or Assassin. Assassin is going to give you critical hits at the beginning of the combat, but I do not know how important is that for you. A lot of people is going to argue that that is better, but for this particular build we are going to have access to quite a lot of critical hits around here, and but I think that it is in our best interest to go Thief right here because of the fast hands. We are going to be using our fast hands quite often. Granted, yes, having Assassin for the first turn to have the granted critical hit right there on the first turn, it's always nice, but it's not going to be anything life-changing. Whereas being able to hide twice, attack and hide twice in one single turn, that is going to be life changer, that is going to be game changer, and this is going to be affecting all throughout the battlefields. Just to have in mind that if you want to go Assassin or if you want to go Thief, any of them are going to work perfectly fine. It's just that this guy is going to allow you to hide more often, and that is what we're going to be going for right here. But if you want to go Assassin, then be my guest, you're able to do so as well. At level 4, I only level up to level 4 right here. This is another concession that you're going to want to make in here. You either go into level 4 if you want to have the feat right here, and the feat that we are going to be choosing right here is going to be Spell Sniper. The reason for that being is that this is going to reduce the cantrip that we are going to get right here. It's irrelevant, we're not going to be using the cantrip. What we want this thing for is to reduce the amount of chance that we are going to be using for critical hits, rolled critical hits with our spells and our cantrips. So yeah, there's that. And this effect can stack, and we are going to be using quite several items in the itemization for us to be able to be using things. So might as well take the Eldritch Blast right in here. This is something that you can do, although you are going to get the Eldritch Blast from the Warlock later on, so that is something that you need to have in mind. So I better think that we're going to go. Also, this is going to be the spellcasting ability for this thing is going to be Charisma. So yeah, I mean, it's up to your personal preference at the end of the day, but we're going to be using Eldritch Blast, just to have that in mind. Now this is where we're going to be multi-classing into the Warlock. The Warlock is going to give us access to quite a whole lot of things. The main thing, we already have Eldritch Blast right here, and this is just a different version, so it's up to your personal preference. I like to take utility spells right here. Now the subclass, we're going to go into the Great Old One, the Fiend. We don't care about that because we're not going to be healing, the enemy is not going to be seeing us, so hence they are not going to deal damage. Although on critical hits we are going to be frightening the enemy, so that is a little bit more CC that you're going to have at hand. And the spells, they are really not going to be important. Like always, you can either take CCs and what have you. Eldritch Incantations at level, Eldritch Invocations, I'm sorry, at level 2, you're going to take Agonizing Blast to add your Charisma modifier to your cantrips, and then we're going to have Devil's Sight, a Devil's Sight to be able to see in darkness. Then we're going to have the Pact Boon. We're going to take Pact of the Blade. This is just going to affect one of the weapons that we're going to have right here. We're going to be using dual wielding to deal damage, but that is okay because that is just a little bit of extra damage that we're going to have in melee. And the darkness, that is always that something that we do want to have. We can start replacing spells that we do not want in here if you want to have access sooner to, for example, Misty Step. But like I said, we're going to be using, to get access to Hold Person, which is something that we are going to be using on the builds. The next feats that we are going to choose is just going to be Charisma. We want to increase our DPS with our Eldritch Invocations and the spells that we are going to have, so just feel free to increase those at your leisure. Level 9, we get the extra attack on our Deepened Pact. You have to be very careful while using this thing because you might be using your extra bonus attacks with your melee weapon. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, it's going to take quite a while for you to have access to an extra attack, although we're not going to be doing like extra attack that much. Hunger Hadar, it's something that I love, it's something that I like, so yeah, there's that. I just like to take that one. Now in here, this you can begin to take whichever one that you would want to take. You can either take Repelling Blast, Mines. I like to use Beguiling Influence or Beast Speech to be able to speak with animals. That's a constant thing that I have on my videos. And honestly, just keep leveling up until you reach level 12. You're going to get more invocations in here. You can either, like I said, at this point you already have everything that you would want to have, so all of this is going to be up to your personal preference. There's going to be room for change in here. There's nothing really specific that we are going to be using specifically for how are we building this character right here, so feel free to take whichever thing that you would want to have in there. At level 12 we're going to have access to our final spell right here, and also to our final feat, which is going to be the ability improvement to raise our charisma to 20. At this point we have our character finished. Now, the itemization for our character. As we level up, we are going to want to have a short sword on our main hand, or it could be a scimitar. There's quite a lot of short swords that you're going to have access to that are going to be actually quite amazing. Also to daggers. Just as you level up, there's going to be some recommendations that I'm going to have for you in the video description, but your ultimate goal at the end game is going to be the Crimson Mischief that you're going to have on your main hand, which is the one that is going to deal that much more damage. And we have the Bloodthirst as our offhand, and this guy is going to reduce the number of roll of critical hits while we have this thing equipped, so that's one stack. As for the helmet, we are going to be using the covered cowl. This is also going to do the same thing, provided that you are obscured most of the time. 100% of the time we are going to be. And then we are going to have the Shadeslayer cloak, which is going to reduce again the amount of rolls that we have to have for a critical hit while we are sneaking. And we are going to be sneaking, like I said. That is why I decided to instead take the Thief right here, because this is going to, you're going to be able to do sneak attacks more often with our Thief rather than the Assassin, so meaning you are going to get more critical hits with our Thief right here rather with the Assassin. So if you took the Assassin path, then I'm sorry for you guy. I'm sorry for you, my dude. Yeah, there's that. And also we're going to, any armor that is going to give you a bonus to stealth, that is going to be amazing. There's no particular armor that we're going to be choosing right here. As for the ring, we are going to be using the Smuggler ring, because it's going to give us the sleight of hand, but also because it's going to give us the stealth right there. So that is something that we actually do want to have. As we level up, a excellent idea to have as gloves, it's just going to be the Gloves of Thievery. This is not going to give you something like anything really important combat wise, but it is going to give you advantage to your sleight of hand to be able to disarm traps, to steal the arrows that you are going to be stealing, to be using them in combat, and to be farming them from merchants as you steal them. So that is always amazing. As you reach the Act 3 of the game, you're going to have access to the spell Might Gloves that are going to increase the damage of your Eldritch Blast by 1d8 damage. But you're going to receive a penalty to the roll that you deal to that thing. The thing is that we're always going to be attacking from sneaking and darkness, shadows, so we don't really care about receiving that penalty on the roll, because we're always going to have quite a lot of chances to hit the enemy. So yeah, there is indeed that. Now, as for the amulet, it's up to your personal preference. I mean, you can be using the Surgeon Subjugation amulet and things like that, what have you, to just paralyze people with this thing. So there's just indeed that. On the second ring, I like to keep the Dominate Beast enchantment, just because we're going to be able to dominate humanoids. But I also like to have the choice to dominate Beast, and this is going to be a level 5 spell. But in reality, anything that you would want to have right here, it's going to be amazing. As a matter of fact, if you are going to be using the Strange Conduit ring to increase the physical damage that you are going to deal with your daggers, that is actually going to be quite amazing as well. But yeah, there's room for you to breathe around here and change the ring to whichever one that you would want to have. You could also using the critical hit on demand that you are going to receive from the Killer Sweetheart, and these are things that you can get very early in the game. So yeah, there is indeed that. Things that I like to do with these builds. There's actually quite a lot of things. Like I said, we're going to be using quite a lot of arrows with these builds, but the arrows are going to be utility. One thing that I like to do is that you have quite a lot of high-level Warlock spell slots, so that means that you can hold quite a lot of people. As a matter of fact, you're going to be able to hold 3 targets, and that is something that I like to do. So that is going to give you damage to your Strange Conduit ring to be dealing melee damage. Now, that is going to leave you in the open. At some point, to some extent, yes, that is going to do such a thing, but that is why you are going to be using your Arrows of Darkness. So one thing that I like to do to set up the battlefield is just cast some Arrows of Darkness to some people, and then you're going to be able to hide in that darkness. Although this only lasts 3 turns, so you have to be very fast on how are you killing people. Remember that the supply of arrows is infinite from merchants, so be sure that you're always stacking up from darkness arrows of darkness. If you do not have access to Arrows of Darkness, you can most definitely be trading that whole person that you have right there to get those pretty critical hit damages that you have around here and there to cast your darkness, because darkness, that is something that you actually do have it. Now your melee weapon is going to be based, it's just going to be your main hand weapon that is going to be based on your charisma rolls and charisma modifier. So there is indeed that you're going to be dealing a little bit more damage with that thing, and also you cannot drop your weapon, but that is irrelevant because you're always going to be in the shadows, you're always going to be in the darkness. So one more thing that I actually like to do quite a lot is my mobility arrows that we have right here. The reason for that being is that sometimes you are going to most definitely going to encounter into enemies that are going to have devil sights. Those enemies are going to be very easily recognizable because they are going to start moving. You notice on the gameplay that I have for you right here that if you have enemies that are not moving, that they are just not looking for you, that is because they are blinded, and because the last known location, which is the stealth mechanic of the last place that you enter into stealth, usually enemies are going to go to investigate that place. If you use your last known location in darkness, the enemies are not going to be able to find it. Although if the enemy has devil sight, they are going to be able to find that location and they are going to go to investigate it. You can use your stealth to push through that thing, but one more thing that you can do is just use your arrows of mobility to teleport you to a different place, cast a darkness on a different place, and while the enemies are actively looking for you, you can have free access and free mobility through the battlefield. That way you can focus on the enemies that actually do have devil sight, the enemies that are actually going to be looking actively for you, and since you have so much DPS, you can use whole person against them, you can use whole beast against them, you can just deal damage with your Eldritch Blast and your new gloves, and just the high DPS potential that you have with this builds, with this character, and the advantages that you have from attacking from the darkness. So you should always be focusing on the enemies that have devil sight first, and then leave the ones that do not have devil sight for the end of the fights. So yeah, there is indeed that. It's just an amazing build with so much potential for spells, things that you are going to be able to do, for crowd control, for many spells that you have at hand. If you want to be using sneaking melee attack, that is something that you can do. You can be holding person and then doing melee damage, melee critical damage to those persons, and then go back into hiding, have more damage, have more things, and even if you're not fighting against humanoids that you can hold, you still have quite a lot of critical rolls and hits for you to be able to deal critical hits because of your helmet, because of your talent feat that we chose for the cantrip, because of the cloak. So yeah, overall this is just an ultimate assassin. Granted, it does rely on using arrows, but if you do not want for it to have to be relying on arrows, which is perfectly fine, if you do not want to be farming from them, if you do not want to be stealing them, even though that is an option that you have. I have different several builds posted in the channel that do not require for you to be doing such a thing. Anyways, if you like the content, so like and never super appreciate it. No one told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will be seeing you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel before you close the door, and goodbye.